Hey there, deep divers. Ready to explore some big questions about how we learn and how we govern ourselves?
Sounds intense.
It is. Today we're diving deep into education and politics in the age of automation.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah. And to guide us on this deep dive, we've got this academic article called Reimagining Education and Political Systems in the Age of Automation. Lessons from the Enlightenment and Beyond.
Catchy.
Right. That title's a little intimidating.
Oh.
I know, but trust me, we're going to break it down together
Yeah, we'll make it fun.
and get to those juicy insights.
With good stuff.
Okay, so the article kicks off by painting this kind of the stark picture of higher education today.
Okay.
And, I think we can all relate to this, the pain of like skyrocketing tuition costs.
Yeah, it's a huge issue. And think about it. Tuition has more than doubled in the last 20 years.
More than doubled.
It's crazy. But it's not just like a random price hike.
No.
No, it's tied to some really impactful policy decisions.
No more than just inflation then.
Right. Way more than just general inflation. Things like, decreased state funding for public universities,
Wow.
plus what some people call administrative bloat,
I've heard of that, yeah.
all pushing costs higher and higher.
Yikes.
It's almost like this perfect storm hitting students and families.
Right in the wallet.
Yeah, exactly.
Ouch, but honestly, even if we could like magically wave a wand and make college affordable for everyone,
Okay.
there's still this question.
Yeah.
Is a traditional four-year degree even the best path for everyone anymore? Like, are colleges really teaching the skills people need in a world where automation is like changing everything?
That's a key point, and the article really digs into that. It argues that it's not just the cost of college that's a problem.
Right.
It's the value of that degree that's being questioned.
Makes sense, because like, what good is a degree if it doesn't translate into real-world skills and opportunities?
Right.
But it's not a simple like either-or scenario, is it?
No, not at all.
Because I imagine some people would say a liberal arts education is more important now than ever.
Exactly. Some argue that focusing on critical thinking and adaptability is crucial in this constantly changing world.
Okay, so where does lifelong learning come in then?
Well, it's becoming absolutely crucial, and the article emphasizes that traditional models of education
Yeah.
might need a complete overhaul.
Wow, so like, what would that actually look like? Does everyone need to go back to school every few years?
Not necessarily think more like micro-credentialing programs and things like AI or data analysis or online platforms offering courses in emerging fields.
Interesting.
Yeah, lifelong learning in the age of automation is all about continuously upskilling.
Gotcha, staying relevant.
Exactly, because the only constant is change.
Right. It's almost like we need to become like mental ninjas.
I like that.
Always learning, always adapting.
Totally, especially with those robots potentially coming for our jobs.
Oh yeah, speaking of which.
Hold on a second.
Oh.
Let's not get carried away with that whole robots are stealing our jobs narrative.
Okay.
Yes. The article mentions some pretty eye-opening statistics.
Yeah.
Nearly half of U.S. jobs could be automated in the coming decades.
Whoa, that's a lot.
It is, but it's not necessarily all doom and gloom.
So should we all be like brushing up on our robot repair skills right now?
I think learning valuable skills is always a good idea.
Yeah.
But remember, automation doesn't automatically equal mass unemployment.
Okay.
What we're really talking about is a shift in the types of jobs that'll be in demand.
Okay, so instead of robots marching in and taking over,
Right.
it's more like the landscape is shifting,
Yeah,
and we need to be prepared to move with it.
exactly. Some jobs will disappear, no doubt about it.
Okay,
But new ones will emerge and existing jobs will evolve.
so how do we prepare for that?
The key is adaptability,
Okay,
which brings us right back to that idea of lifelong learning.
right.
We need to be proactive about developing those uniquely human skills that can't be easily automated.
Like what kinds of things?
Things like critical thinking, creativity, and complex problem solving.
So it sounds like the future belongs to those who can think critically, learn quickly, and adapt to change.
I think that's a pretty good assessment.
Okay.
But here's where things get even more interesting and a bit unsettling.
No, I don't like the sound of that.
This fear of economic displacement, of being left behind in this rapidly changing world,
Yeah.
it's not just an individual anxiety.
No.
It's feeding into our political systems as well.
I have a feeling this is where we start talking about the two-party system.
You're catching on quickly.
Okay, I'm ready to dive into the political side of things, but can we just acknowledge that politics can be a bit of a minefield?
Oh, absolutely. It's so easy to get caught up in the emotions, the rhetoric, the us versus them mentality.
Right, it gets messy.
But remember, our goal here isn't to, endorse one side or the other.
No, not at all.
We're just trying to understand the systems at play and how they might be impacting our ability to, navigate these challenges of an automated future.
Right. It's about the bigger picture.
Exactly.
Okay, so what does the article have to say about the two-party system then? I'm guessing it's not exactly singing its praises.
You guessed it. The article argues that this binary system, this forced choice between these two dominant parties,
Yeah.
it might actually be hindering our ability to have meaningful political discourse
Okay.
and find common ground.
Because when you only have two options, it's easy to fall into that trap of like,
Totally.
you're either with us or against us.
Right.
There's no room for nuance.
Exactly.
No space for compromise.
It's like, as you said earlier, going to an ice cream shop and only having chocolate or vanilla to choose from.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
What if you want a swirl? What if you want sprinkles? What if you want something totally different?
Uh-huh. I'm sensing a metaphor here.
The point is a two-party system can limit our choices
Yeah.
and make us feel like our voices aren't being heard.
Right, like the system is rigged?
Yeah, exactly. It can lead to polarization, voter apathy, and that sense that the system is rigged against us.
Which is not good.
No, especially in a time when we need to, come together to solve these complex problems.
Yeah, we need to be working together.
It's a recipe for disaster.
Okay, so then what's the alternative? If we ditch the two-party system, what do we replace it with?
Well, the article throws out a few interesting ideas.
Okay.
Remember that concept of ranked choice voting we talked about earlier?
Yeah, where you rank the candidates in order of preference instead of just picking one.
Right, that's one potential solution. It could help break that stranglehold of the two-party system
Okay.
and give voters, more nuanced choices.
More ice cream flavors.
Exactly.
Like
Whole menu of options.
I like it, but ranked choice voting still feels kind of wonky and theoretical to me.
I get that.
What about something more like concrete, actionable? What can we as individuals do to engage with these issues right now?
That's a great question. And honestly, one of the most powerful things you can do is simply participate. Vote in every election.
Local and national.
Yes. Do your research on the candidates and the issues, attend town hall meetings. Engage in respectful dialogue with people who hold different views than your own.
Okay, so it's about showing up,
Yeah.
making your voice heard,
Exactly.
and demanding more from our political system.
It's not just about changing the rules of the game.
Right.
It's about changing the culture of how we engage with politics.
I like that. And, it's interesting because the article suggests that higher education could actually play a key role in revitalizing our political systems.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, so colleges could be like the superheroes of democracy? How does that work?
Well, imagine if, instead of just focusing on job training, colleges put more emphasis on teaching critical thinking, media literacy, and civic engagement.
So we'd be learning not just what to think, but how to think.
Exactly how to analyze information, see through propaganda, and engage in thoughtful debate.
Those are some really important skills.
They are essential for informed democratic participation. They empower us to make sense of the world around us, to resist manipulation, and to engage in meaningful dialogue even when we disagree.
That is inspiring, I have to admit. But let's get real for a second.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about problems and potential solutions, but honestly, I'm starting to feel a little overwhelmed.
It can feel daunting, for sure.
Where do we even begin to tackle these massive systemic issues?
That's true. But remember, every great movement starts with individual action.
Okay.
And the article itself offers some concrete policy proposals that are worth exploring.
Okay, let's do it. Let's see if we can find some light at the end of this rather complex tunnel.
All right, let's start with the one that's probably on everyone's mind, the elephant in the room of higher education.
Tuition costs.
Tuition costs. The article proposes some innovative public-private partnerships to make college more affordable.
So businesses and the government would team up to help foot the bill for college.
That's the idea.
I mean, it sounds like it could potentially work, but I have to ask what's in it for the businesses.
Well, think of it as an investment.
Yep.
By supporting education, businesses are also investing in their future workforce.
Ah, so they have a say in shaping the curriculum.
Exactly. They'd have a say in shaping curricula to ensure that graduates have the specific skills they need.
So it's like a win-win.
Right.
Students get a more affordable and relevant education, and businesses get this pipeline of qualified candidates.
Exactly.
But how would this actually work? Would businesses be directly subsidizing tuition costs, or would it be more about providing scholarships and internships?
The article suggests a multi-pronged approach. Think tuition grants tied to specific fields where there's a high demand for skilled workers,
Go.
apprenticeship programs that combine classroom learning with on-the-job training,
Makes sense.
and even tax breaks for companies that invest in employee education and development.
So it's about creating a more symbiotic relationship between education and the workforce. Okay, that is really interesting. It makes me wonder, though, how we ensure quality control in these alternative education pathways.
That's a good point.
I mean, a degree from like a prestigious university still carries a certain weight, a certain guarantee of quality.
Mm-hmm.
How do we make sure that these new pathways are rigorous and respected?
That's a crucial point, and the article acknowledges this challenge.
Okay.
It emphasizes the need for clear standards, accreditation processes, and industry certifications
Okay.
to ensure that these alternative pathways meet rigorous quality benchmarks.
That makes sense. Okay. So we've got some potential solutions for tackling tuition costs. So what about the political side of things? Any concrete proposals there?
Absolutely. Remember those electoral reforms we discussed earlier, like ranked choice voting?
Yeah.
The article dives deeper into how these could be implemented. It even highlights specific examples of cities and states that have successfully adopted ranked choice voting.
So it's not just a pie-in-the-sky idea.
Yeah.
It's actually happening in some places.
Exactly. And beyond electoral reform, the article stresses the importance of civic education.
Civic education.
It argues that we need to start early teaching kids about government history and their rights and responsibilities as citizens.
So it's not just about like learning facts and dates.
No.
It's about cultivating like active and informed citizens
Exactly.
who are prepared to engage with the complexities of our political system.
And it goes beyond the traditional classroom setting.
Yeah.
The article suggests incorporating civic engagement into community programs, volunteer opportunities, and even online platforms.
Interesting.
It's about creating a culture of participation, making democracy something we do, not just something we talk about every 4 years.
That's a really powerful idea.
Okay.
So we've got tuition reduction, electoral reform, and civic education. All great ideas. But what about that more radical proposal we mentioned earlier? The one that might be a bit controversial.
Ah, yes. Universal Basic Income, or UBI.
UBI.
Now, this is where things get really interesting and potentially divisive.
Okay, time for a quick explainer for our listeners who might not be familiar with UBI.
Sure.
It's basically the idea that everyone, regardless of income or employment status, would receive a regular payment from the government, no strings attached.
That's right. And the rationale behind UBI, as the article explains, is that as automation continues to displace workers, we need a safety net, a way to ensure that everyone has at least a basic level of income and security.
Okay, that's a bold idea, but wouldn't it, like, disincentivize people from working?
That's a common concern.
And how would we even fund it? And wouldn't it lead to, like, massive government overreach?
Those are all valid concerns, and the article doesn't shy away from them.
Okay.
It acknowledges that UBI is a controversial proposal, but it encourages us to consider it seriously, to have an open and honest debate about its potential benefits and drawbacks.
So it's not about endorsing UBI outright.
Right.
It's about having a nuanced conversation about its potential role in an automated future.
Exactly. And to delve into those nuances, let's explore some of the specific arguments for and against UBI.
Okay, let's do it.
On the one hand, proponents argue that it would provide a safety net for those who lose their jobs due to automation.
Okay.
It could reduce poverty and inequality and give people more freedom to pursue education, entrepreneurship, or creative endeavors.
That does sound pretty appealing.
Yeah.
What about the other side of the coin, though? What are the main arguments against UBI?
Well, critics worry about the cost, of course. Where would all this money come from? Would it require massive tax increases?
Yeah, that's a big one.
They also question whether UBI would actually disincentivize work, leading to a decline in productivity and economic growth.
And wouldn't it create a sense of dependency on the government?
That's another concern often raised by opponents of UBI. They argue that it could erode individual responsibility and create a culture of entitlement.
Wow. Okay, so we've got strong arguments on both sides.
They do.
It sounds like UBI is one of those complex issues that just defies easy answers or simplistic solutions. What do you think, dear listener? Where do you stand on this debate?
It's definitely a question worth pondering, and remember the article we're discussing is just one perspective.
Right.
It's crucial to engage with a variety of viewpoints, do your own research, and think critically about the potential implications of any proposed solution.
I think that's great advice for approaching any complex issue, not just UBI.
Absolutely.
Do your research, think critically, and don't be afraid to challenge your own assumptions.
Exactly. And, it's fascinating because This whole discussion about UBI, about the role of government, about individual responsibility versus collective well-being,
Yeah.
it all ties back to that core theme of the Enlightenment that we touched on earlier.
Right, that idea of questioning the status quo, using reason to solve problems, and striving for a more just and equitable society.
Precisely so. As we move into the final part of this deep dive, let's keep that Enlightenment spirit in mind.
Okay, I'm ready.
Let's explore how those principles can guide us as we grapple with the complexities of education politics and the future of work in an automated world.
Welcome back, deep divers. So as we wrap up this exploration of education and politics in the age of automation, I want to circle back to this concept that's been kind of weaving its way through our conversation.
Oh, yeah.
The Enlightenment.
Yes. It's such a fascinating thread that the article uses to, tie everything together.
Right.
It argues that the spirit of the Enlightenment, that era of reason and intellectual curiosity and questioning the status quo, is exactly what we need to navigate these choppy waters we're facing today.
Okay. I'm ready to delve deeper into that connection because we've talked about robots potentially changing the workforce, the rising cost of college, the limitations of the two-party system, and even this radical idea of universal basic income.
Right?
But how does the Enlightenment, this period of history from centuries ago, offer any guidance for these modern dilemmas?
It's not about, copying the Enlightened thinkers verbatim.
Okay.
It's about tapping into their mindset.
Their approach.
Their approach to knowledge, progress, and societal change. Think about it. The Enlightenment was all about challenging assumptions, embracing new ideas, and using reason to create a better world.
Okay, I'm starting to see how that mindset could be relevant today. But let's get specific.
Okay.
How can we apply that Enlightenment spirit to something like, say, the problem of skyrocketing college tuition?
Well, one way is to question the assumption that a traditional 4-year college degree is the only path to success.
Okay.
Remember, the Enlightenment was all about expanding access to knowledge, not restricting it.
Yeah.
So maybe it's time to explore alternative models of education that are more affordable, more flexible, and more aligned with the needs of a rapidly changing workforce.
You mean like those micro-credentialing programs and online courses we talked about earlier?
Exactly. Think apprenticeships, vocational training online platforms offering courses in emerging fields.
Yeah.
There are so many possibilities.
So many options.
It's about democratizing education, making it more accessible and relevant to a wider range of people.
That's a really powerful idea. It reminds me of Benjamin Franklin, one of the leading figures of the Enlightenment.
Absolutely.
He was a self-taught polymath scientist, inventor, diplomat, writer.
Yeah, he did it all.
He embraced lifelong learning and didn't let traditional structures limit his pursuit of knowledge.
Such a good example.
Right.
And it highlights another key principle of the Enlightenment.
Okay.
That belief in individual potential and the power of self-determination.
I like that.
Not everyone is meant to follow the same path, and our education system should reflect that diversity of talents and aspirations.
Okay, so we're applying the Enlightenment spirit to education. What about politics? How can we use this framework to address some of the issues we talked about earlier, like political polarization and voter apathy?
Well, the Enlightenment emphasized reasoned debate, civil discourse, and the free exchange of ideas.
Right.
It was about engaging with different perspectives, even challenging ones, and using logic and evidence to arrive at informed conclusions.
That sounds like the opposite of the shouting matches and echo chambers we often see in politics today.
It is, and the article would argue that part of the problem is that we've lost sight of those core Enlightenment values.
We've strayed from the path.
We've become too quick to dismiss opposing viewpoints, too entrenched in our own ideological bubbles.
So how do we get back to that spirit of reasoned debate and civil discourse? Is it just about being nicer to each other on social media?
It's more than just being polite.
Okay.
It's about cultivating a culture of intellectual humility.
Intellectual humility.
Where we're willing to acknowledge that we might not have all the answers.
Right.
That other people might have valid perspectives, and that through respectful dialogue, we might actually learn something new.
It sounds challenging, especially in our current climate.
It is.
But I think you're right. It all starts with a willingness to listen, to engage with different viewpoints, and to resist the urge to shut down conversations that make us uncomfortable.
Exactly. And I think that brings us to the crux of the matter. This deep dive hasn't just been about exploring the challenges of automation or debating policy proposals.
Right.
It's been about rediscovering the power of the Enlightenment.
Yeah.
That enduring belief in human reason, progress, and the potential for creating a better future.
It's about remembering that we're not just passive bystanders in this rapidly changing world.
We're not.
We have the power to shape the future, to imagine new possibilities, and to create a society that reflects our highest values.
The article leaves us with this really powerful question.
Okay.
What would it mean to apply that same spirit of intellectual courage and creativity to the challenges we face today?
Ooh, that's a good one.
What assumptions are we clinging to that might be holding us back? What new ideas are we afraid to explore?
And what can we as individuals do to contribute to this ongoing project of progress and enlightenment?
That's the question.
Might feel overwhelming at times,
For sure.
but as we've discussed, every great movement starts with individual action.
It does.
It starts with each of us being willing to question, to learn, to engage, and to act.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I encourage you to read the full article.
Yes.
Reimagining Education and Political Systems in the Age of Automation. Lessons from the Enlightenment and Beyond.
What a mouthful.
I know, right? And to continue this conversation with your friends, family, and communities.
Yes.
Because the future isn't something that just happens to us.
Right.
It's something we create together.
Thanks for joining us on this journey of exploration.
It's been fun.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep striving for a better world.